Good afternoon, Acting Deputy Chief, and as I've been saying, first, thank you for your service and thank you for your forthright testimony already here that you've given today. I just need to pull one very small thing before I begin. I'm just scrolling to it in my own disclosure.
If you could first introduce yourself and speak up a bit, please.
Yes, sorry, sir. Brendan Miller. I am counsel to Freedom Corp, which is an incorporated entity that represents the protesters that were in your city in January and February of 2022. So beginning first with the area that I want to chat with you about is the Hendon reports. You said in your evidence in chief that Acting Chief Bell's unit at the time, which I believe you said was intelligence.
That's right.
They were the ones that would receive the Hendon reports, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And it's fair to say that it would have been now Acting Chief Bell's responsibility to pass those reports on to the office of the chief and Chief Slully. That's who would pass them on to him.
I think what he would be passing on is the products of what that unit worked on to share up. I don't think it was his job to pass it up to the chief, but the information would be assessed, analyzed, and then passed up the chain.
Now, we heard yesterday that Chief Slully had to get the Hendon reports from the OPP directly in January of 2022. And Superintendent Morris found that odd because the OPP had been providing those reports to OPS since Project Hendon started in early 2021. To your knowledge, were the Hendon reports not provided by now Acting Chief Bell or his department to Chief Slully?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Couldn't comment on that. My understanding is that the chief was receiving them as part of an all chiefs. Sometimes that's how the initial, there's two separate levels. So he might have been receiving it in that. That's generally one of the ways that that information is disseminated across the province. But whether Chief Bell was getting them and when he got them, I don't know. I couldn't speak to that.
And so it's fair to say that we'll have to just ask Chief Bell or Acting Chief Bell that. It's fair to say then that these Hendon reports, they went to someone likely in Chief Bell's unit, but not necessarily Chief Bell?
Yeah, that's fair.
And then that individual, whomever received them or group, would then put together their own product and then provide it to either Chief Bell, and then Chief Bell may or may not provide it to Chief Slully. Fair?
Fair.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to get that clarified because it's an important point. I want to talk to you a little bit about too the media reports and some of the misinformation that was spoken about yesterday by Superintendent Morris. The media, through reporting at times and statements of elected officials, reported that the residents of Ottawa were experiencing unprecedented violence. Do you remember reading that?
I don't remember reading that. No.
All right. Can you agree with me that there was not an increase in violent crime or events of violent crime in the city of Ottawa during the protests before the invocation of the Emergencies Act?
I don't think I can agree with you on that. I do believe we saw an increase in violence. I don't have the exact measures or the stats, but I do know that we did see some increase in violence and acts of violence as a result of the protest in town.
Right. And so I understand that prior to the invocation of the Emergencies Act, between January 27th and February 14th, there was a total of only 13 charges laid as against the protesters. Can you agree with me on that?
Can you repeat the dates, please? Sorry.
Between January 27th
Yeah.
and February 14th, the invocation.
So that charges were laid during that time. Charges may have been latent in terms of once the information was all gathered, then charges were laid after. And my understanding is there's somewhere upwards of 400 charges that were laid in relation to the convoy.
Right. And those charges, I understand, the great majority of them arose after February 14th with respect to the enforcement. It wasn't for things that happened during the time period prior to the invocation. Is that fair?
No, I think they were acts that took place during that time period when the convoy was in town, but that the information was only able to be solidified into a state where we were able to lay charges at that
right.
point.
So Acting Chief Bell be able to provide us an accurate number for this commission with respect to that question?
I'm sure he could if he knows the question now.
Okay, so, well, hopefully he's able to do that, because I believe that's an important point. Now, I take it that during the protests, of course, that the Ottawa Police Service, though they weren't at times enforcing bylaws or weren't enforcing provincial infractions, they were enforcing the criminal code in full force and effect, right?
No, I wouldn't say that. I think we were struggling to be able to do that.
You're struggling, but if a police officer saw an individual assaulting another, or there was a report of an individual to a police officer that they had been assaulted, that was investigated.
Yes.
Those individuals, after that investigation, if it was appropriate, charges were laid against them.
Yes, in many cases.
Now, did Chief Sloley at any time advise you that he had been advised by RCMP Commissioner Brenda Lucki on January 31st, 2022, to not have the City of Ottawa get an injunction because it's an official movement to another stage? This will involve the whole country, and anything official will spark a national response. Did he tell you about that?
I was part of a conversation with Commissioner Lucki and Commissioner Karik, I believe, at the time. I don't remember those facts specifically, but I do remember Commissioner Lucki saying that it was a bit of a double-edged sword getting an injunction because, then you would need to be enforcing it. And if you don't have the resources right now to enforce all the criminal codes and other offenses that were being broken here, then to get an injunction sort of sets the expectation for the community that you were then going to be able to actually come down and enforce it. And we didn't have the resources there. So there was conversation for sure about it, but I don't know what her specifics, what you're saying, whether that was attributed to her or not.
Right. So I just want to go through again, you had mentioned in your evidence in chief and under examination from my friend's counsel for Mr. Sloley, that there were certain provisions with the Emergencies Act order, the order in council that assisted removing the protesters. I want to deal with each. So first is the threat or the freezing of bank accounts. All right. So I'd like you to turn your mind to that. How many individuals whose bank accounts were frozen, to your knowledge, immediately exited the downtown of Ottawa?
I don't know.
All right. Do you have any information that these individuals who had their bank accounts frozen couldn't leave because they couldn't pay to get out of Ottawa?
I had heard anecdotally through the media some of those stories, but I'm not aware of any specifics.
Okay. So with respect to that, can you agree with me that it was only about 58 or 59 individuals who had their bank accounts frozen?
I can't actually agree because I don't know those figures. I'm sorry.
Okay. And dealing with some of the other enforcement provisions, of course, you can agree that the Emergencies Act order did not order an increase in officers for you to remove the protesters.
No, what it did do was there were some legislative things that we were able to get our CMP members here without swearing them all in, which was a bit of an administrative hurdle for us. We were, struggling with that throughout the convoy. With the Emergencies Act, they were able to come and just be police officers here without that step.
Okay. And so that is one of the things that sped it up. But can you agree with me that if there was an order, once you got the resources in place, if there was an injunction in place that had the terms of removal inside of it, that these police officers could have done the same thing, couldn't they?
Yes, they could have. I think we had most officers across Canada here.
Right. So I just want to touch on, and we've talked a little bit about misinformation. And, the evidence from Superintendent Morris yesterday was very interesting. He talked about misinformation in detail and misinformation in the media, and it was very enlightening. And of course, there's still some misinformation going around. And, even we have misinformation. We don't know what's true and what's not. So I'm going to ask you some questions here. I don't know what the answer to this is going to be. but it may or may not be misinformation. Did you tell any of your friends and colleagues within OPS that at some time prior to you giving testimony here today, that you were approached by someone who wanted you to give certain evidence that was not true?
No.
Thank you.
No.
Now, I take it that you prepared in advance for giving your evidence in this proceeding, in the sense as a police officer would before they testify in a trial or any proceeding.
Yes, I did.
Right. And unlike regular court proceedings, this proceeding is unique, and there's no exclusion of witnesses' orders. And in fact, the proceeding plays out online and live on TV. I take it you're aware of that?
Yes, I am.
Did you have the opportunity and privilege to listen to the evidence of Superintendent Morris before testifying today?
His was the one I missed because I was intensely prepping for today, so.
All right. Well, I'm not going to ask you about his evidence then and ask you to confirm it if you haven't heard it. But can you agree with me that Superintendent Morris is the most senior intelligence officer within the provincial government in the entire province of Ontario?
I don't actually know that. I believe that, but I don't know that that's 100%.
And you know he works hand in hand with the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, the Communications Security Establishment, and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. You're aware of that?
Yes.
And if anyone in the province, within the provincial and even municipal apparatus, knows anything about threats to the security of Canada, it would be him, wouldn't it?
I don't know how to answer that. I mean, I think that's speculative, but he's a very learned colleague in this regard, for sure.
Yes. Those are my questions. Thank you very much.
And if you like this video, remember to like and subscribe and press that notification button to receive more information like this. You can also follow me at yellowhead.vote to stay informed and get the inside scoop. Thank you.